Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Michele Chang. I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy at the Economic Development Administration. We are so excited that you've joined us today for today's webinar. Today, we will be focused on EDA's new Equity Impact Investments Program that was detailed in the Notice of Funding Opportunity released last week on June 16th. Thank you for attending and for your interest in this program. We are excited for you all to join to see if your organizations have strong alignment with this program. We're excited about both of the programs under this Notice of Funding Opportunity. We will spend today doing a couple different things. First, we'll give you an overview of EDA. We'll go over then the Equity Impact Investments Program more deeply. Next slide, please. After that, we will take some questions and talk about next steps. If you all are on the Blue Jeans app, you will notice there is an opportunity for you to type in some questions that you have. We do have some staff on hand who can answer as many questions as they can as you type them in. So we encourage you to put any questions that you have into the chat function. We will be focusing on answering questions that have broader appeal and are relevant to a broader audience. So if you do have a specific question about your specific organization or application, we do have a specific email box that we will go over during this webinar, and we do welcome you to send those questions to that email inbox, and we're happy to answer those as well. All right, next slide, please. Before we get started, we're going to start to just give a little bit of an overview of EDA's mission. And for those who aren't familiar with the Economic Development Administration, give you a little more information on who we are and what we do. Before doing that too, I just want to call attention to a website that we have put together for this particular program as well. It is eda.gov/programs/equity-impact-investment. On that website, you will find information about this program as well as links to the NOFO. And in the coming days, we'll be posting more information there, including this webinar, as well as other FAQs that continue to come through. So with that, as we think about who the Economic Development Administration is, for those who aren't familiar, we at the EDA, our mission is to lead the federal economic development agenda by promoting innovation and competitiveness, preparing America's regions for growth and success in the worldwide economy. We do that by three major things. The first is increasing America's global economic competitiveness. The second is supporting community-led economic development. And the third is helping communities develop resilient and agile local economies. This is something that we've done for many years, and we're really excited about taking some of our work to the next level. Next slide. Now, we at the Economic Development Administration have what we call investment priorities. These are the principles that we utilize to base our investment decisions on. And at the EDA, our primary programming is grant programs. And so these are the principles that we primarily think about when we think about what type of investments to make in the projects and grants that we give out. You'll see at the top of the list is equity. And you'll see an arrow here with a lot of writing there. I will detail a bit of this so you know what we're talking about here. But it is incredibly important for this Notice of Funding Opportunity and this program in particular. Equity is something that we are extremely focused on at the Economic Development Administration. We have made it intentionally our top of our list, the #1 investment priority that we have. We really want to ensure that communities across the country, particularly those that are underserved, get the resources, technical assistance, and funding that they need to spur economic development and to be able to create good paying jobs that work and that workers get the skills that they need to land those good jobs. Now, when we think about equity, we define it as follows. We think about equity as any sort of project that is economic development planning or implementation that advances equity across the United States through investments that directly benefit either one or more traditionally underserved populations, which can include but is not limited to women, Black, Latino, and Indigenous and Native American persons, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders. Or it could be underserved communities within geographies that have been systematically denied a full opportunity to participate in aspects of economic prosperity. This can include tribal lands, persistent poverty communities, and rural areas with demonstrated historical underservice. That was a lot that we listed out right there. We do want to call your attention to a website that we do have on our EDA website that talks about what these investment priorities are, and it lays out just what I put out, what I just said. It is eda.gov/about/investment.priorities, and you'll see information about all of these different priorities, including that definition that I just outlined for equity. Next slide. Now at EDA, we prioritize outreach and community engagement to underserved communities and populations. Economic development is local, as you all know, and we recognize how unique each community is and that we must form relationships at a local level in order to be effective. That is why EDA has 6 regional offices and an economic development representative assigned to each state and territory. That is to build strong relationships on the ground and to understand the specific needs of that community and how EDA can best reach them and serve them. We are constantly working to connect with more organizations, communities, underserved populations to build awareness of EDA's programs and services. What's laid out on this slide are a couple different resources that are available within EDA's structure. The first is Economic Development Districts, or what we call EDDs. They are multi-jurisdictional entities commonly composed of multiple counties and in certain cases even cross state borders. They help lead that locally based, regionally driven economic development planning process that leverages the involvement of the public, private, and nonprofit sectors in order to establish a strategic blueprint for regional collaboration. This blueprint is often known as a comprehensive economic development strategy, or CEDS, that, as you may have heard it referred to as. It is a strategic driven plan for the region's economic development. A CEDS is a result of a regionally owned planning process designed to guide the economic prosperity and resiliency of our area or region. It provides a coordinating mechanism for individuals, organizations, local governments, and private industry to engage in meaningful conversation and debate about the economic direction of the region. Now, for those of you who may be newer to EDA, one of the key things that we do look at in all of our different grants is that there has to be alignment with local CEDS. So that's something that will be important to look at to ensure that the projects that you are proposing align with the CEDS in the regions that you are going to be working. EDA also recognizes that institutions of higher education are critical players in the development of vibrant economic ecosystems. Universities are sources of significant economic development assets that can support regional economic growth. EDA has our University Center program. It is to enable institutions of higher education to establish and operate university centers focused on leveraging university assets to build regional economic ecosystems that support innovation and high-growth entrepreneurship, resiliency, and inclusiveness. University centers collaborate with other EDA partners, such as economic development districts, by providing expertise, applied research, and technical assistance to develop, implement, and support regional strategies that result in job creation, high-skilled regional talent pools, and business expansion in a region's innovation cluster. The last resource I want to mention to you is our Research and National Technical Assistance Program. This program funds research, evaluation, and national technical assistance projects that promote competitiveness and innovation in distressed rural and urban regions across the United States and its territory. This program encompasses of 2 separate programs: research and evaluation and national technical assistance. As you can see, EDA is structured so we can provide ongoing operating support to both our current and potential new EDA applicants. All right, next slide, please. Now let's dive a bit more deeply into the Equity Impact Investments program. To give some background before we start there, I do want to highlight that we at the EDA have grown quite a bit in the last several years. For those of you who have followed us closely, you have recognized that we received quite a bit of funding in the 2 recent supplemental fundings from the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan Act. We received $1.5 billion in the CARES Act, and we received $3 billion in the American Rescue Plan. All of this funding has allowed EDA to lead an unprecedented approach to really help communities prevent, prepare for and respond to the coronavirus, which we know is still an ongoing pandemic that many communities are still rebounding and recovering from. So as we think about that, we turn to the next slide, please. We at EDA are thinking both internally and externally about the tremendous amount of work and proof points that have informed our agency of where communities need the most support. Via the CARES and the American Rescue Plan Act and the ongoing funding opportunities from EDA, communities are in need of more technical assistance and capacity building to both understand and engage participation for economic development planning and programming. We are aware that there are voices and representation of underserved communities and populations within some of these regions that may not have gotten the full voice that they deserve. And what are the key things that we really want to do is think about how we can provide that opportunity for underserved populations and communities to be able to have an integral place and voice in local economic development planning and the whole process of local economic development growth. This program that we have really provides a great opportunity as we see it. We see that there are some major areas for opportunity, and that's one of the key things that we're trying to solve with this program. We really want to increase technical assistance, capacity building, and the understanding of economic development planning and processes for underserved populations and communities. We also want to increase underserved communities' representation within EDA's operational structure, but also in the broader economic development regional structure as well. And as mentioned, we grew quite a bit at EDA. We, as I mentioned, about $4.5 billion that we received in supplemental funding in the last several years. And so with that, we have given out a large number of grants and have funded a number of projects over the last several years. We want to help support those grantees to further their plans around equity and to also improve their outcomes around equity. And so the other opportunity we see is to really develop systems so that economic development planning can continuously be rooted in equity at both the local, regional, and national level. So that's the opportunity that we see. And within the next slide, please. With this notice of funding opportunity, you will see two distinct programs that we are trying to fund. The first is a network of Economic Recovery Corp fellows. This is to add human capital to local organizations focused on improving economic resilience and competitiveness in distressed regions and communities. This you will see in the notice of funding opportunity is focused on pages 4 through 8. I do want to note that today's webinar is focused on the next program, so we will not be focusing today on the Economic Recovery Corps program, part of the notice of funding opportunity, but we will be having a webinar tomorrow, Thursday, June 23rd at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For those that are interested in applying for that program, we certainly urge you to join our webinar tomorrow at 1:30 to learn more about that program and get any questions that you have answered. This, and like we've mentioned, is the equity impact investments, and that's what we're going to focus on today. That is in the notice of funding opportunity focused on pages 8 through 11. Next slide. Now, when we think about what type of applicants are eligible for EDA funding, we wanted to make sure that we level set everyone on the type of organizations we at EDA can provide grants to. On this slide here, you'll see all the different types of organizations that are eligible for EDA funding. In short, we basically can provide a grant to any organization except for-profit entities or individuals. So as you see here, any district organization of an EDA designated EDD, an Indian tribe, state, county, city, or local subdivision of a state are eligible, as well as institutions of higher education or public-private nonprofit organizations or associations. Those are all eligible entities for EDA's fundings, including for this notice of funding opportunity. Next slide. Now, who should apply for this program? The intent of this webinar is to help you get more information about this program and to hear a little bit more about what we're hoping to achieve with this program, so you can think about whether this is a good fit for your organization and how to put together a strong application. We wanted to call out the specific expertise that would make an application more competitive, and we are seeking applications that will ultimately identify and establish a coalition of organizations with a proven track record of effectively working with conducting outreach, and delivering outcomes for underserved populations. So with that, we're looking for applicants that are a couple different things. Number one, we want applicants that are well-versed in building and implementing successful economic development plans that deliver results. So this can mean really understanding how local economic development works, understanding who the key players are that really make regional economic development successful, and understanding what that ecosystem looks like to be able to help other organizations get into that ecosystem. As mentioned, what we're really trying to do with this program is to get underserved populations and communities really strongly have a better capacity and knowledge base of how local economic development works. So that's one of the key things is first understanding how economic development works so that you can help other organizations be able to do that as well. The second thing that applicants should be able to do is to leverage expertise and strong regional economic development networks to bring organizations that serve underserved populations into those plans. So that's where having these relationships with underserved, with organizations that serve underserved populations and communities will be critical. We're really looking for an organization that understands how economic development works and then partners with some organizations that serve underserved populations and help them build their capacity, help embed them into local and regional economic development ecosystems and plans and processes. Next slide. Now, there are two ultimate goals of this program. The first is to build the capacity and knowledge base within organizations that serve underserved populations and communities on how to directly participate in economic development and planning. So let's just pause on that one a little bit. When we think about this program, that's one thing. It's just how can we build the capacity of underserved populations and communities so that they, number one, understand how local economic development works, and number two, have the knowledge and have the capacity to be able to effectively develop economic development plans that can be investment ready. Now that's the first part. The second piece that we are looking for with this program is to help EDA's existing grantees have better outcomes around equity. And so that can look like a couple different things. We really want to have an organization that can help leverage some of their relationships with organizations that serve underserved populations and communities and help make those connections to our existing grantees so that they can have stronger outcomes and better impact on particularly populations that have been underserved. Now, looking at this, we also understand part of the biggest thing of putting together an application is looking at the budget that you will be putting together. We have roughly a total budget to play around with of somewhere between $3 to $10 million, but we do think the ideal grant budget request for this program will be between $3 to $6 million. So when we think about that $3 to $6 million, we've mentioned partnerships with some organizations that serve underserved populations and communities. We anticipate that an applicant could put together an application that will request funding for themselves to be able to run some of this program, but also potentially provide some of those funds to sub-grantees that may be these organizations that do focus on underserved populations and communities. All right, next slide, please. Now, in terms of the type of activities that we're looking for this program, as I mentioned, there's two major pieces of it. The first is helping build capacity and knowledge base for underserved populations and communities, and the second is to help our current grantees have better outcomes from an equity perspective. So it's looking at the first one. A couple of the activities that we've thought about that could be included as part of an applicant's proposal is they could provide organizations that focus on underserved with tangible ways to systematically impact local economic development. That could be through leadership or governance. Another activity could be to help increase organizations' economic development understanding, readiness, and capacity. Some other things that could be done are to develop tools to help prospective grantees draft compelling applications that will be investment ready, or to help build connections and partnerships to position projects for potential other funders. We could also see activities include assisting eligible applicants in understanding and aligning their projects with SEDS. Now, the second piece of this, like I mentioned, is to help EDA's grantees have better outcomes for populations that have been underserved. And so some examples of that, for those of you who have maybe following some of the work that we are doing with the American Rescue Plan Act, you will see a couple different programs that we have there that are a little bit different for EDA. One of them is the Good Jobs Challenge. This is one of the first programs that EDA has done that's focused solely on workforce development, where we are working to actually place workers into good quality jobs. And so part of that could be having an applicant work with those grantees to help them recruit more potential participants from underserved populations and communities to participate in these training programs so that they can get the skills that they need to be able to land good quality jobs. Another potential activity could be to work with our Build Back Better Regional Challenge grantees. The Build Back Regional Challenge is a $1 billion grant program that we are currently running to help build industry clusters across the country. For these clusters that we are funding, they are really built of coalition. And so one of the things that we really have pushed all of our grantees or our potential grantees to do is to really include organizations that focus on underserved populations in their coalitions and plans. But we could see an applicant come forward and help our ultimate grantees connect with more organizations that serve underserved populations so that they can increase their impact for these communities. The other thing that we could see is having an applicant come forward and coordinate with EDA's current Networks program and National Technical Assistance Program to support EDA grantees in driving more equitable economic development outcomes at scale. So these are some suggested program activities that could be included in applications. These certainly don't have to all be filled, but we did want to give you all a flavor of some things that we were thinking to help be able to meet the goals around this program. All right, next slide, please. Now, in terms of the desired program outcome for this program, we are looking at funding a grantee for roughly a 3-year period, so a 36-month period of performance. And by the end of that time frame, we anticipate a grantee should be able to demonstrate the following. Number one, that they have built a strong network of organizations that serve underserved populations and communities and have helped them develop a strong understanding of foundational economic development practices and principles. Number two, they have enabled underserved populations and organizations to begin to implement economic development strategies, programs, projects, and related initiatives as measured by program starts, grants, or investments received, SEDS executed or update, or similar metrics. We're also looking for evergreen resources that have been produced that EDA may provide to future grantees to improve their equity outcome. And lastly, we are looking for improved EDA grantee equity plans and outcomes through more targeted partnerships with organizations that serve underserved populations and communities. All right, next slide, please. Now with that, I'm sure you've heard enough from me. So I'm going to bring in a colleague of mine, Courtney Haynes, who is going to be leading this project going forward. She's going to talk a bit more about the evaluation criteria that we will be using to evaluate all the applications that come through for this program. Courtney.
Thanks, Michelle, and thank you all for giving us your time in this hour to learn more about this exciting program. Speaking for myself, I'm very excited about the initiative. So as you can see here on this slide, the evaluation criteria, what are our applications actually going to be scored against? And so there's 6 categories, and most of you have probably already seen the NOFO, but these are detailed out there as well. Number 1 is the strategic approach, and you see that's the biggest one, almost double of all the other criteria scoring at 30 points. In this criteria, we're really looking for the how. Competitive applications should include specifics on how their activities will increase the representation of underserved populations and/or geographies in local economic development efforts and increase the understanding and capacity of these organizations in developing strong economic proposals themselves. In addition, and as mentioned, competitive applications should include details and understanding of EDA's current grantees that Michelle just discussed and projects, and provide possible specific examples of how their work and this coalition, your coalition, could strengthen EDA's grantee impact. Please include, again, the how on how your project will promote inclusion of underserved populations and or geographies and advance equity. This is really a great opportunity with this criteria of strategic approach because this work hasn't been done yet. So we're looking for both a degree of innovation and specific detail, context, and reasoning why coalition partners are the right organizations to really do this work well. The second criteria is organizational or applicant capacity and personnel. Please include prior examples of past performance on similar projects, including your experience with federal grants, if you do have that, and details about your staff, the profiles of your staff, to successfully execute these program objectives as it relates to equity. Please provide your unique value and expertise in bringing this coalition together, and what specific roles and responsibilities on your team, who will do what, and how you will implement the described outcomes in your proposal. Number 3, feasibility of deliverables and timelines. The most competitive applications provide clear scheduling of programming with very clear metrics and benchmarks to reach success. Providing information on what inflection points your organization will set and measure against will be important for any applicant awarded. In addition, we know sometimes programming can take twists and turns, so outlining and forecasting potential barriers and risk associated, and including some mitigation strategies that you would consider to meet those barriers are going to be helpful in this criteria as well. Number 4, cross-collaboration with EDA and other economic development partners. We've discussed this throughout the webinar, but again, competitive applications should include specifics and provide that demonstration on partnership cultivation across both the economic development networks and landscapes and through organizations that support underserved populations. Applicants should demonstrate understanding and clearly identify and bridge current EDA programming into this coalition so that we can maximize impact on the ground. Number 5, sustainability, scalability, and dissemination. This is such a unique program, and at EDA, we are viewing this program as a long-term investment, and we need to create that necessary infrastructure for long-term engagement and impact. So in your application, again, the most competitive application are going to include specifics and thinking on how your program will ensure this sustainability via outreach, dissemination channels that traditionally are involved in the economic development planning and processing. The last one is the feasibility of budget and management plan. The budget has to be reasonable. I'm going to say it again. The budget has to be reasonable and aligned to the project scope. Again, the ideal budget, as Michele mentioned before, per applicant is between this $3 million to $6 million to therefore allow more grants if needed to be funded. We request as much detail as possible on the budget to align project descriptions, outputs, and outcomes with the requested funding. There's been a few questions that have come in online, so I'll take this moment while we're talking about the budget of how many awards are we going to give out. For the Equity Impact Investment Program, our hope is just to give out one award, but depending on the geography reach and the impact, and because of this $3 million to $6 million scope that we do have in our program budget, possibly up to $10 million, we could award more than one grant. So again, the criteria more deeply described in the NOFO. We recommend paying really close attention to the indicators because again, that is what applications will be scored against. So please align your narrative as best as possible. And I believe Michele is going to join me back.
Great. Thank you so much, Courtney. That was great. Well, we have some questions that we have received through our email inbox for the last week or so since we have posted this notice of funding opportunity. And we thought we use this opportunity to answer those questions for you all. But again, if you do have other questions that we haven't had outlined here, please continue to put them in the Q&A box. We'll try to answer as many as we can. And if we don't get to it, we will continue to update our FAQs on our website. Again, go to the Equity Impact Investments page of the eda.gov website, we will continue to update the FAQs with more questions that come in from that. But you can also send an email, and we do recommend, if you do have a question specific to your organization or your application, to send it to our email inbox, and we have a specific one for this program that you can send those questions. Okay, with that, we'll start with the Q&A, and Courtney here is going to help answer these questions again. The first one is, should applicants focus on a national program or a regional? Courtney?
Yes, such a great question. Michele, if I leave anything out, please jump in and provide. Applicant, given the strength and impact of the coalition in meeting the program outcomes and long-term objectives. Our hope, and again, I wrote this in a few of the comments coming in from our Q&A, our hope is that a proposal will come from a national entity that understands how local, regional economic development works, including the processes and players involved, and partners with national organizations that serve underserved population and or geographies that have regional presence. In the application, we'd be looking for the applicant to choose a few regions, anywhere between 3 to 5, to focus on.
Great, thank you, Courtney. Now, second question is, how many coalition organizations are ideal to be included in the coalition? And I think this question is getting at, as we talked about, right, that we anticipate that strong applicants will partner with some organizations that focus on underserved populations.
That's exactly right. So there's not a required number of coalition organizations to be included in your coalition. However, we hope to see inclusion of 2 to 4 organizations that serve underserved populations and or geographies. The strategic design and approach of the coalition is important to consider in determining reach and impact, both short and long term. So it will be significant in your proposal to highlight the depth and the capacity and the expertise, and again, that unique value add of your potential or current coalition organizations in serving underserved communities in your submitted application.
Great, thanks, Courtney. And I'll just say, as you think about what type of organizations to potentially partner with for this application, as I mentioned, we did outline how we define underserved populations and communities. So those are the type of populations and communities we hope that you are focusing on, organizations that focus on those type of populations and communities. But in particular, we also want to focus on some of those populations and communities that EDA has not done some formal programming for yet in the past. So we really want to fill in some gaps in our programming in that way. All right, next question. How is this program different than a community of practice? Which is a great question for those who have been involved with some of the work that we're doing in the American Rescue Plan program. We have done a number of community of practices there. So I'll let Courtney take it.
Yes, it is a great question, because you could read it and say, there's some similarity here. And there possibly could be. With the Equity Impact Investments program, there might be opportunity for coalition organizations to share their learnings, become a peer leadership network. However, the intention and the majority of the program is really focused on the provision of technical assistance and direct support to each of your coalition organizations to increase their own and their region's impact as it relates to economic development and equity.
Great, thanks, Courtney. Our next question is, can current and or former EDA grantees apply for this program?
Yes. Answer is quick on that one. Yes, former and or current grantees can apply for this program.
Yes, so certainly anyone that has a grant with us or had one in the past, you are still, as long as you are still an eligible entity of ours, you can qualify and apply for a program. All right, next question. What are considerations in identifying potential coalitions?
So applicants should demonstrate capacity and experience in conducting outreach and working with organizations that serve underserved communities and or geographies. EDA recommends that coalition organizations serve populations as defined in our equity investment priority definitions and describe that in detail in the proposal. and possibly fill gaps for underserved populations that our current EDA program does not reach. Applicants that include coalition organizations that do not represent and or work with underserved populations and or geographies will not be competitive. So it really is important to think about, consider, cultivate, build partners with potential or current coalition organizations that serve underserved populations.
Great, thank you, Courtney. Yes, certainly we are focusing on, this is all about equity, how to help underserved populations and communities. That is how we have defined equity here at EDA. So again, take a look at the definition that we have outlined under our investment priority, number 1, equity. All right, next question. Does EDA encourage or discourage submitting applications for both of the projects under this notice of funding opportunity? So as you all recall, there's actually 2 programs that we are funding under this one single. Courtney, I'll let you take that.
Yes, and this one actually came in as well through the Q&A box, and we realized, you know, it's one NOFO, 2 programs. Are they together? Are they not together? They are 2 distinct, different programs. So we actually would strongly discourage an applicant to apply for both programs under this NOFO. While the objective is increasing equity and as it relates to economic development, they are 2 very different programs. So only apply to one.
Great, thank you, Courtney. All right, and last one that we have here is, should applicants work with their state's economic development representative for application support, which is a great question. As we mentioned, we do have economic development representative, which is EDA staff that are assigned to every state and territory in the United States. And for many of our programs, they are incredible resources to be able to help you navigate the application process and help you also think about how to put together the strongest application. But this program is slightly different, so I'll turn this over to Courtney, who will answer that question.
Yeah, it really is a great question, because I'm thinking through maybe those on the webinar now. Perhaps you've worked with an EDR before, if you submitted a grant or received a grant from EDA. The EDR is, I think everybody here says that they're the secret sauce of EDA, and they're just so helpful. However, this program is different. We are managing and we're supporting this program out of our Washington, D.C. headquarters office and not at the regional offices. So if you have questions on, you know, you don't understand maybe something is written in the NOFO, or you have questions on application support or whatever that might be, please use this email, equityimpact@eda.gov, and that's on that primary webpage for the Equity Impact Investments Program itself, and we'll share that out here in a bit as well. Take it down and make sure to send all your questions to that email, and we will have team members in DC respond to you in real time and as quickly as we possibly can. We know that this is a short timeline. You know, we only have a couple weeks, and so we are here for you. We want to be responsive for your questions. So please, please take advantage and reach out.
Great, thanks, Courtney. Now,
sure,
I'm just
thank
seeing
you.
a few questions that have come through on the Q&A that may just be worth us saying out loud, so everyone can benefit from hearing and us answering those questions if those are things that other folks are interested in too. There's one question I wanted to actually highlight. Someone asked if we could define what a region is. I thought that was a great question, because we at EDA talk about regions a lot, and there's also a lot of different ways that we actually talk about regions internally at EDA. I'll say first, we do have what we call EDA's regions. These are the 6 regional offices that we have. That is not how we are thinking about regions when we think about our grantees. So oftentimes we talk about local economic development, and that's actually usually done at what we call the regional level. What we mean by a regional level is really we allow each applicant to define what the region is for them. For some people, that may be a single county. For some, it may be multi-counties. For some people, it could even cross state lines. This is where we just really recognize that local economic development and local economies are really different. In some places where you have a lot of states bunched together closely, how you really are able to make an industry thrive in a region, you may need to pull from folks for the workforce from different parts of the region that could be from different states. But in certain regions that are just geographically designed differently, where if you have a large state, it may just be a certain part of that state where it's that region that you're pulling from to really think about that industry and help that industry grow. So I guess what we want to be able to say is we look to you all as the experts who understand the local economies that you're working in to help define what that region means for you all. That's how we think about regional economic development at EDA. We want you all to help us understand on the ground what is most effective for you all to think about how to define what. Hopefully that's helpful. Let's see. Courtney, any other questions that jumped out to you that might be helpful for us to call out? I think I saw one other as you're looking through that. I will call out. Someone did ask if we could just mention again when the webinar for the other project under this notice of funding opportunity will be. As we mentioned, there are 2 projects under this single notice of funding opportunity. Today we talked about the equity impact investments program. There is also the project that is focused on the economic recovery core. That they will have a webinar, and we will be having that tomorrow, June 23rd at 1:30 Eastern time. So certainly encourage you all to take a look at that program, and if you're interested in applying for that, to definitely attend that webinar tomorrow. All right. We did also get some questions on whether this webinar will be recorded and posted, and the answer is yes. We are recording this and we will post it to our website. For those of you who may have missed a portion of it or want to go back to a certain part of it, we certainly will make this available, as well as the slides that we went through. We will make all of this available.
Yes, and before we go into next steps and Michele closes us out, it seems like we're getting a lot more questions here at the tail end. So if we do not answer them, we are able to take down all these questions. We are working on a FAQ document that will be posted on our website. So look out for that because we want to make sure that we do address all your questions. You can also email at theequityimpact@eda.gov. So thank you, everyone. Michele, I'll turn it to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Courtney. With that, if we could turn to the next slide. All right. In terms of next steps, as we mentioned, the application window is open right now. We launched this notice of funding opportunity last week on June 16th. Applications can be submitted until August 5th. So roughly a little less than 2 months to put this together. We do have to distribute the funds for this program by the end of September. That is congressionally mandated with the funds that we have. And so we will be reviewing applications once we receive them on August 5th, between August and September, and we will make an announcement on the awards for this program no later than the end of September. Next slide. All right, in terms of next steps, if this is all sounding really interesting and exciting to you, as hopefully it is as interesting for you all as it is for us, please do take a look at the notice of funding opportunity. You'll see on the slide that's on the screen right now, the link to the actual notice of funding opportunity. The notice of funding opportunity is an incredible tool for any grant program that we have at the EDA. It outlines all of the objectives, goals, outcomes that we are seeking to achieve through the grants that we are making for a particular program, as well as outlining the evaluation criteria that Courtney walked through. So basically how we will be evaluating each of the applications that come in for this program. So we are very intent on being very transparent on how we evaluate all applications that come in. So we have outlined all of that out in the notice of funding opportunity and urge you to take a look at that to make sure that you are meeting the objectives that are laid out in the notice of funding opportunity. The NOFO, as we call it, also outlines the different documents that are required to be submitted to have a complete application. Please do take a look at that carefully because we are required to have a number of different documents to be able to effectively evaluate each application that comes in. So you'll want to make sure that all of your required forms are included, and those are all outlined in the notice of opportunity. Secondly, as mentioned, we do have frequently asked questions, FAQs, that we have posted to our website that will be coming online shortly. We will continue to update those FAQs throughout the application period as we continue to get questions, and we want to make sure that everyone has the same information as they're putting their applications together. Now, if you have specific questions about your organization or your proposed application for this program, we encourage you to send an email to equityimpact@eda.gov. We have staff that will regularly check this email and respond to all requests that come in there. So certainly reach out to that email inbox if you have any questions. As Courtney mentioned, we strongly recommend that you utilize this email inbox and that you are not reaching out to your economic development representative for this particular program. And lastly, please share this with your networks. We know that there's many of you on the line that are strongly embedded in the economic development world, and we know a lot of people that work in this space. And so we urge you to share this with your networks, share this with stakeholders that you work with. As we have noted in this webinar, we are looking for strong partnerships in these applications. So a strong application will have some strong partnerships. And so certainly share this with your network so that you can put together the strongest application that will be the most competitive. All right, I'm not sure if we have a next slide, but I think that might be our wrap up here today. With that, yes, a big thank you to everyone. As Courtney mentioned, we know we might not have been able to get to all the questions in the Q&A box. If we did not get to your question, again, please do feel free to send an email to equityimpact@eda.gov. We're happy to answer any questions through that format, particularly for any specific questions related to your organization or your proposed application. And with that, we just want to say a big thank you for spending some time with us today, for your interest in this program, and also your commitment to equity. As you all know, we here at EDA take equity very seriously. We're really excited about this program and to be able to have the opportunity to fund some programs and organizations that are really going to help particularly underserved populations and communities have better access to economic development. So with that, thank you, and we will be talking to you all soon. Thank you.